Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Odinic School of Mysteries podcast. This is Bear. Thanks for coming. I'm glad you're here. So we're going to talk about Freya today. We spend a lot of time, I know, talking about Odin, and that's understandable because the mystery school I'm a part of is the Odinic mysteries, or the mysteries of Odin and his dying god myth. But that doesn't mean that there aren't other gods out there that are worthy of talk and understanding. And the understanding of their symbols and their mysteries is integral in understanding the function of higher principles of nature. There's an old saying that says, "I, the gods, represent forms and functions of nature, and my children are their effects." It goes something like that. So a lot of what we do is you kind of almost have to take the personhood out of the god and look at the form and the function of the symbol that they represent. And that's really important to do. So the symbolism here is going to get really thick in a hurry. And so it's simply going to be impossible to go through this in any real good detail because it's just going to be impossible. In the time that we have, this is why people spend their lifetime studying this stuff instead of, if everyone could just attend a class, everyone would be an expert. So today is going to be much more akin to me walking you through a vast library and pointing out the books and saying, look, this book exists. This book exists. Read the titles. Isn't it cool? And then we move on. We're not going to be able to dig into anything particularly deep today. My wife is particularly fond of this goddess. More specifically, she's fond of the Irish incarnation of this goddess, which is the goddess Bridget. And so this podcast today is dedicated to my wife, Bonnie. Bonnie, you're awesome, and this is for you. Okay. So, there's an old Hermetic saying that says that all life is born in water. And whenever you have water and the things associated with water, is very often a feminine symbol. Specifically, a lot of it is referred to. There's three main goddesses that are all bunched together in the solar system. You have Nana, which is the Earth. Wife of Balder, the sun. You have Sif, the moon. Again, what I should say, and I said this in my last video, the Odinic School of Mysteries, or the Mysteries of Odin, the mystery school that I'm a part of, I should say, we're not reconstructionists. We're not trying to reconstruct an old religion and try and we're not going to say that something isn't true just because it doesn't appear in the texts. There's a lot of things that we believe to be true that if you put a gun to my head and say, show me where, I wouldn't be able to do that. There's some things that are in here that are just known and understood that aren't necessarily back-upable. So I don't want to lie to you and make you think that you're getting something you're not. All this information comes to me through the mystery school I'm a part of, and I'm here to tell it to you. So take of it what you will. I'm not here to lie to you or tell you anything different. I want to be up front right away. So there's three goddesses. They're all bunched together right here in the middle of the solar system. You have, like I said, Nana, which is the wife of Balder, the Earth. You have Sif, the moon, who her beautiful locks are cut off and then is later restored to her. We see it as a lunar symbol. She's the wife of Thor. And then you have Freya, who is associated with the god, the planet that in modern parlance we call Venus. And with goddesses, because of that water symbol, that symbol of water that we see over and over again, there's a lot of water symbolism that goes along with that. So one of the things we see a lot is that people confuse lunar symbols with symbols of Venus. And that's very easy to do, especially if you're not very up and aware on your symbology. It's frankly very easy to do because both are crescents. Both are represented by crescents a lot. And so it could be kind of tricky to tell the difference. And the reason that goddesses are attached to boats is because they represent the transitory nature of symbols. Last night, I was really shocked. I was up at 3 a.m. with my son. He's 7 months, and, my wife was struggling to sleep. So I took the baby. I was out here in my chair, and I was watching the Joe Rogan, one of the Joe Rogan comedy specials on Netflix. And I doubt he really put any thought into this, but one of the things that he said off the cuff, which I thought was really spot on, is he was like, the woman's vagina is a portal to a new dimension. And I was like, dude, you're just totally spot on. That's exactly what the symbol represents. That's exactly what the symbol represents. That's where we get like the Atet boat in Egyptian mythology. And I had enough forethought to actually pull up some of my old notes. This is from the Egyptian Book of the Dead, or the Papyrus of Ani, or the also called the Book of Coming Forth by Day. This is the Budge, Wallace Budge version of this. Most of these PDFs you could find online and print them off for free. So if you're interested, you don't have to spend a bunch of money on them. But anyway, they talk a lot about the Atet boat. You can see it right there. And I'll put it down below so you can see it as well, for those of you who are watching on the YouTube version. And the Atet boat it's a crescent symbol, right? It's a crescent moon. So the symbol is pretty ubiquitous. And so it would come to no surprise that the goddess Freya has a special magic boat. Surprise of surprises. It's that transitory nature that the feminine aspect of the goddesses have. So all the gods had these little special magical gifts that they were given. Like Odin has a spear. I think, don't quote me on this, but I think Frey has a magic sword that fights by itself. Thor, of course, very famously has his hammer. Freya has this magic boat that she could fold up and put in her pocket. And so this symbol, this arc symbol, always has become the feminine symbol. It even represents, the boat that the sun will go into under the underworld, the arc of the underworld. So like I said, the symbolism gets really thick, and it's really easy to get lost in it unless we're being very diligent. And so I need to be very careful. But so we see, like in her story, so we're talking about the transitory nature of reality. She's the thing that gives birth to something new. It takes something from one thing and turns it into something else, right? You take a spirit, for example, gets incarnated, and a woman takes that incarnated spirit and turns into a living thing. You have that it's the river. It's called the river Styx in Greek. It's that that water symbol, that transitory symbol from one nature into something that's brand new and exciting, and she's she's a major part of creation. So what we see with her, which is really interesting, is there's a lot of evidence to suggest that she is the head of the Valkyrie. And the Valkyrie, for those of you who don't know, is the battle maidens. And they come down and they pick up the worthy dead and then take them off to the heavens to either serve Odin or Freya. Now, Freya gets first pick of all the dead, which is one of the things that people forget. Odin gets second pick. I think they drew straws. She won, and so Odin was obliged to accept only the second best. And so some of them get to be transferred to live with Freya, and then the second best get to go live with Odin and Valhalla, or Valhall. Valhall is the correct way to say it. With a lot of these Norse words, the A at the end was added later because it makes it sound more feminine. It's not actually what it was. So you have Valhalla, Hela, Frigga. That little A at the end was added much later by medieval scribes to make it sound more, feminine and sexy, I guess. But so Valhall is the appropriate one, and the Val means I'm not going to go down that way. Anyway, rabbit trails, man, rabbit trails are everywhere. You're gonna trip and fall down a rabbit hole. It's so easy to do. Okay, so we have that again. We have that transitory nature. We have the feminine Valkyrie, who work for Freya, and that's that transitory nature of turning something that's dead and in the underworld, and it transfers it into something on a higher level, on a higher plane. So the thing to remember, one of the big symbols of the feminine, is that death and life happen at the same place. Or I should say death and birth. Let me correct myself. Death and birth happen at the same place. In fact, it would be wise to see them both as equivalencies, meaning that they're both the same thing. Death and birth are the exact same phenomena. They're just viewed. It just depends on how the observer is observing the phenomena. Okay, that's really important to understand. So, like I said, a brief side trail, but I think a necessary one. The earth is Nanna, the goddess Nanna, wife of Balder, right? Again, feminine symbol. We say that this is the underworld. We say that this is where the land of the dead happen. But it's a feminine symbol. It's a place where you go to be born, right? So both are true at the same time, and it's tricky for modern Western minds to kind of wrap their minds around that idea that death and birth are actually the same phenomena. So even though this is the underworld, this is also the womb. The underworld is the womb of creation. And so you're here to be born. You are going through all these trials, you're being beaten up, all this stuff is happening because essentially you're building the spiritual equivalent of a fetus. You're surviving the trials and the stuff in the womb so that you can be born into something bigger, something better, and something greater than what you currently are. And so it's a necessary it's a necessary thing to happen. So just because you're in the underworld doesn't mean you're a terrible, awful person. It just means you're about ready to be born when you're done cooking, so to speak. And so, so we have one of the interesting things about the, and this kind of goes back to the death, birth phenomenon as well, is that Freya is she's associated with war. A lot of these wisdom gods are associated with war. Freya is a war goddess, let's be very clear. She has war aspects about her. She's not a war goddess. Just like people try and say Odin is a war god, that's not accurate. There's parts of Odin that is warlike. And that is because, so let's back up for a second. So Freya is a master of this old Nordic art called satyr, spelled and sounds very similar to the Jewish satyr, but different. So satyr is this, it's concerned with fates, right? It's this special magical tradition that allows you to weave and work fate. The belief, of course, is that time is cyclical. So by changing the past, you're changing the future. By changing the present, you're changing the past. This sort of thing. And so it has a lot of work with runes and different stuff in there. And it was specifically a woman's art. It was a woman's art. And so the fact that Freya she's a wisdom goddess. So she's very this isn't going to be a perfect one-to-one, but you could say she's very similar to, we would say, like the Egyptian goddess Ma'at, right? Again, not a perfect comparison, but kind of similar in nature. And so there's this very interesting, like with all wisdom associated gods, there's this really interesting paradox. It's why is all wisdom associated gods also associated with a warlike component? We see that, like, for instance, with Jesus and Christ, we see the same thing. You know, he comes in peace at the beginning, brings truth to the world, but then at the end, he comes back at the head of an army and, and is a destroyer. Odin, again, a huge war component with Odin. Freya, definitely into the battle. And that's because truth and wisdom, by their very nature, are warlike aspects. It's because they fight by their very nature. They're very antagonistic to the laws of falsehood, lies, deceit, and cruelty. So that's why, like, if you ever had this experience and you talk to someone and they like lash out at you because you're butting up against the programming, so to speak. They get violent. They get really upset and agitated that you are presenting them with information that they don't want to hear. It's a very unpleasant experience to be on the receiving end of it. Right. But it's that warlike component of wisdom that wages war against the misconceptions we have about the world. And forces, swords, spears, arrows, those things are transitory symbols. They're kind of equivalencies with the symbol of fire, for example. Again, we have that transitory nature where you're taking something from a base metal with alchemy, for example, into something that is on a higher station. And with Freya being a war goddess and being a practitioner of this wisdom art of satyr, that paradox is kind of reconciled there, because it's that battle against falsehood and lies that symbol really represents. And I mean, dude, if you've ever been around a mom, you'll see right away that this moms are extremely protective, extremely brutal against people who would threaten to harm their babies and harm their, those things that they love. And so, I mean, the idea that women, for example, don't have warlike components to their natures, I think, is a gross misunderstanding of their nature. Women can be very vicious and brutal when it comes to the things that they care about. And, Freya as a feminine symbol, as this transitory symbol of the transitory nature from one state of nature to the other, we see that very thing. We see that very nature at play here with her character. And that's really exciting. And that's really fun to meditate on those kinds of ideas, because they are, what's the word I'm looking for? Because they like I said, they challenge our preconceived notions about what things are and how things should be. Excuse me. And that's really important to do. And so the transition from, the transition from a base nature into something higher, for example, the transition from like what we see with Freya, with the battle maidens and the Valkyrie, and the fact she gets first pick of the dead and all of that stuff, we see this very brutal, warlike transition from something that is a base metal into something on a higher plane. It's that being refined by fire aspect of creation. It's a very brutal process to undergo. I could speak from personal experience when, I asked God, teach me the truth no matter what the cost, as my good friend Jacob Israel would say. That's a really good, I really like that quote, actually. When you say that and you mean it, the pain and suffering you have to undergo in order to get to where you need to go is brutal and uncomfortable and sucks. It royally sucks. But you come out the other side at a different place than you were when you started. And unfortunately, that is something that has to happen. We see it in our nation. We see it in our personal lives, their personal spiritual development, and the development of nations and the earth in general. There's a reason why, it's said that at the end, the earth is going to be experiencing birthing pains. It's that beginning, that violent transition from something that is lower into something that is higher. In order to get to, like what the Christians would say, the 1,000-year reign of Christ, you have to go through that brutal transitory nature. You have to ride the Atet boat. You have to ride that Venus ship and have that violent birthing process that is, frankly, violent. I don't know if you've ever got to see a birth happen, but it's a messy business. But it's not easy on the baby. It's not easy on the mom. But it's a necessary part in growing and becoming a real person. And that's really truly what the nature of this feminine symbol represents. The archetypal, wisdom goddess symbol that we see with Freya, for example. And so I hope that wasn't too rambly. I hope it all made sense. I understand that the symbolism gets a little thick, and if you have any questions, please let me know. Please let me know. We're also, if you have any, like I said, if you have any questions, please feel free to let me know. If you're listening to me and you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. That would be extremely helpful, and it will let YouTube know that this stuff is worth sharing. I know that the content that we discuss on this podcast is a bit controversial, and I know it's stuff that isn't discussed. And I really wish it was discussed more. People get really hung up on the occult stuff. You know, they want to get hung up on the Illuminati and the all-seeing eye and that kind of stuff because it's sexy. You know, what the cabal is up to in their smoke-filled rooms. But this is the real, you want to know what the stuff that people talk about in real mystery schools and the true mystery school doctrines. This is the stuff that they talk about. This is the real deal. This isn't the cartoons that people play with on the internet. This is the real thing. So I hope that you will take it and ingest it and really pay attention to what it says. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I'm still working, like I think I said, yeah, it was my last video. We discussed the Awesome Academy, the Odinic School of Mysteries Academy. It's in the works. I want to get at least 2 or 3 lessons finished before I give people access to them, and that's what I'm working on right now. Is working on that. So, it's going to be a fun thing. Jeez, I don't remember. Oh, I want to say a special thank you to again to Jason for helping with the podcast, paying for the podcast service, and to Kelly Monahan for helping, and she donated some money to help us get going. So special thanks to those 2 people. If you are interested in donating, there is a link below if that is something you are interested. If you feel like we've been helpful and you want to help us out to pay for some web hosting, there's a link below. I'm working on trying to get like a PayPal set up and a Patreon. I'm on Subscribestar right now. But I'm also probably going to try getting on Patreon and like a PayPal and some of those other things. So we're growing, we're expanding, and I'm new to this whole thing. So I'm kind of learning as I go. All right. Sound good? Excellent. All right, folks. I'll see you later.